9 weeks, and looking forward to this next phase with his leadership. So, Chief, do you want to take it?
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Thank you, everyone, for signing on. Like the mayor said, we're 9 weeks into this full response phase as we're dealing with the COVID-19 pandemic. We've been trying to stay on top of all the executive orders and the guidance, and really have been encouraging those community mitigation strategies to help address and slow the spread of that virus. So just want to start off thanking everyone in the community for their support and support of those efforts. We do know it's been a major impact on our community. The virus, we still do continue to see increased cases of coronavirus within our community. We do know it is still impacting our community, but there is some positive trending in those numbers, not just within the state, but also within the region, which has led us to the point where now the governor and the state is starting to look towards that recovery. The mayor and our economic development team has been focused on that recovery from early on, and we've had those discussions, and we're glad to be at the point where we're starting to see the ability where we can start hopefully returning to whatever our new normal is. So I'm not going to take any more time than that, other than saying thank you. We are here to continue to support you and provide guidance as possible to whatever level we are able to, and continue to partner with you. You are a vital part of our community, and we know that the only way we're going to get through this stronger is everyone working collaboratively and working together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rista with Economic Development to move on with the forum. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for taking time out of your day to be part of this call. We know that we have to work together in order to succeed and for Torrington to be stronger with this. And so this is our first step in that. I just want to talk a little bit about specifically about our economic recovery plan and what we're doing for our businesses, and then specifically for our restaurants. So what we know is that every business sector has very unique needs and challenges and resources that they're going to need. And when we're looking at this recovery plan, we're looking at not only how do we all just survive this pandemic and get through it, but how do we actually build relationships and collaboration so that we're stronger? How do we create resources that will help us in the long run? So when this is all over, we're a stronger community, our businesses are stronger, our restaurants are busier, and we can be better for the efforts that we're putting in now. So in order to do that, we are establishing industry-specific work groups. So I envision meetings such as this one to take place. This isn't going to be the last, it's the first, but I think there's a lot of work that we can do together. But really, at this stage in the game, we need to hear from you to tell us what are your needs, what do you need to survive, what collaborations would be helpful. One idea that's been tossed around, and we would be looking for you to see if this is helpful or not. If takeout is around for a while, is there more power in collaborating and buying those takeout containers and plastic forks and knives in bulk? Does that save you money? Is that easier for you instead of every restaurant doing it on their own? And I just want to take a second here and just pause, because I was remiss in mentioning most of this will be question and answer. I have received some questions, but there's a chat button. Please feel free to type in your questions in the chat button and we will get to them in just a few minutes here. And I want to try to keep this to the 45 minutes that we had originally scheduled for, so I know everybody is busy. If we don't get to all of your questions, we'll make sure that the questions and resources that you need are on the city's website. And the city we have been working hard to keep our website up to date with all information that you need. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but please, feel free to start asking questions in that chat bar, and we'll get to those in just a minute. So our small work groups working together, finding out what we need for our businesses to grow, and specifically what do restaurants need. You know, some of the stronger restaurant communities are like New Haven has a very strong restaurant community. They do a restaurant week. Is that something that we want to do? Are there passport programs that once we're up and running that will help? Are there resources that you need right now? Are there small grants? You know, I was talking to one restaurant that needed some money to reopen their doors to buy the product and the food and the materials that they need to serve because they haven't had an income for so long. We need to start providing those kind of resources to our businesses. So we really want to hear from you so that we can provide those resources, we can make those collaborations, and you know, you're the experts in your field. You know better than we do, so please let us know. My email is rista_malanka@torringtonct.org. It's on our website. And the mayor too is always available if you wanted to reach out to her. Anything?
No, the only other thing that I'm thinking as we're talking about this is, as Rista has stated, the goal here is to let this be the first opportunity for us to pull everyone together to start talking about, number one, what are your unmet needs to reopen? Number two, what are your long-term needs so that you're going to survive this over the next several weeks? And then that grander picture of the longer term, how can we work together to grow your businesses over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, and going forward. So that's a lot to try to get done in 45 minutes, but we've assembled a great team for you here today to answer questions. We have Martin Connor from our land use office, Jeremy Leifert from land use. Chief Talley is here to answer technical questions with regard to any of the fire code. We have Joanne Ryan from the Chamber of Commerce, and we have Tom Stanfield from our Torrington Area Health District, because I do believe that some of the requirements that you are hearing are necessary to open may need some clarification from our health district. So that's where we are.
Yep. And so we weren't planning on taking this 45 minutes to go over all of the guidelines that you need to know. I think a lot of you are up to date on them and may have specific questions. So we're happy to answer those questions. But if you need to know where those guidelines are, they are both on the Torrington Area Health District website, the city website, and the state website. So we have links to all of the same information, whichever website you go to. One of the reasons we're not going to go over everything is they're changing as we speak. You know, one of the big changes that you may have heard about already is originally, if you know, outdoor dining only, takeout, delivery. So if you needed an outdoor patio permit, you had to apply to the state to get that patio liquor permit. Executive Order 7MM now says you don't have to do that. Your liquor permit is automatically extended to serve outside for your outdoor dining. So really, the best resource for you is if you have questions, go to the links that we've provided to get the most up-to-date, accurate information. And if you still can't find it or you still have questions, please reach out to us. And we don't claim to have all of the answers, but we are trying to stay up on top of this as we can, and we can find the answers for you if we don't already have them. So with that said, we have our great panel here for you, and we do have a few questions that came in ahead of time. So I'll just get started. And I think the first one is for Marty, who's our city planner and has been working really hard to make getting your local permits for outdoor dining easy and accessible. So I'll ask Marty, and then I'll also ask, after Marty, Tom Stansfield to chime in as to what you need to do to satisfy the Torrington Area Health District requirements. But so the question is, if restaurants do want to provide outdoor dining, what do they need to get a patio permit locally? And Marty, I'll let you go ahead and start that.
Okay, what we've come up with is we have an application for seasonal outdoor dining, which we're saying is a temporary COVID-19 pandemic restaurant outdoor dining permit. It's a simple form. We ask you to fill it out. We're asking for a sketch of where you want to do this outdoor dining. It could be on the sidewalk if you are a restaurant that has enough room for outdoor dining on a sidewalk and still be able to leave at least 4 feet free so that the public can get around your tables. Or this is what's really different this year. If you've got a parking area, we're going to allow you to use a section of your parking lot for the outdoor dining, and we're going to waive any parking requirements that you may have had. So this gives you another opportunity, or maybe you can do both. But we're asking you to submit a plan drawn to scale, showing the area intended for the outdoor sidewalk dining or parking lot. If you're going to use the public sidewalk area, though, you do have to submit a certificate of liability insurance covering the city as a named additional insured. And we have, we can give you some guidance on that. So we're trying to make it as easy as possible, and believe it or not, we're not going to charge you a fee for this. So we really want to work with you, as the mayor said. The restaurants are so important for the city of Torrington. I know I miss being out, having my breakfast early in the morning and being able to eat in our great restaurants in the evening. So let's help get you going. You can get that form either calling my office, 860-489-2221. You can go online to the Land Use Department, and you can look at applications, and we'll have this application that you can print out. Then you can send it in to us. You could email it to us, or if you want to drop it by Town Hall, you just have to call our office when you're at Town Hall, and someone from my department will come downstairs and pick it up from you. So that's what we have to help get you going.
Tom from Torrington Area Health District, do you want to talk about your requirements?
Sure. The Torrington Area Health District, like Marty, I'm happy to report that we've never charged for the outside patio requests. We do have some guidelines. They're pretty self-evident, quite honestly, but if I haven't previously, I just sent them to you, Marty, as well via email. We will post those on our website. I'm pretty sure they're already there, quite honestly. A lot of self-evident things. Ground cover, durable ground cover, we're looking for that. All of the COVID requirements must be met. Marty's covered those very, very well. I really don't think there's anything here that's crazy. The one that comes up, and we are still looking for guidance from the state health department on, we specifically say that overhead cover is highly recommended. And the reason that's controversial is we're not requiring you to have a tent, but you must provide some kind of protection for the food until the point where it's distributed to the consumer. So that means covered food trays, whatever you've got to do, so that as your wait staff or your server is bringing the food out to the consumer, it's protected from the elements. Once you've given that to the consumer, it's kind of their responsibility. They've chosen to sit outside. That's where they've chosen to eat. But as a server, as a restaurant, you've got to protect that food from the time that you've prepared it to the time it's actually served. That's really the big deal. The rest of them really, they refer to the Liquor Commission, they refer to zoning, and Marty's already covered those very well.
So one of the questions in the chat bar is if they, and maybe this is for Marty and Tom, if they already have a patio permit, do they need to get a seasonal patio permit?
The answer for that is no.
No, I don't differentiate either.
For outdoor dining, and it's for an area that's on your property already, then no, you don't need an additional permit. this is really for a temporary outdoor dining, such as we have downtown on Main Street in the summertime, some of our businesses, or if you've never had it, and like we talked about earlier, and you need to use a section of your parking lot, so if it's something new, then yes, you do need one.
Okay, and then there's a question about if you want to put up a tent. So we just heard that there's no requirement for a tent, but if you wanted to put up a tent, what permits are needed? And I think we'll let Chief Towie from the fire department start with this one, because I think there's some fire code regulations that we need to make sure we are aware of.
Yeah, I mean, I think I just give some general guidance at this point. We are here to help you with that process. If you are interested in or in a situation where you need to put up a tent, whether it be for, your operations or just providing some sort of cover, we would still have to make sure that that tent is of an appropriate flame resistant material, and would have to have the proper permits to make sure that there's appropriate egress. There are a lot of variables, whether you're going to put sides on the tent, whether you're going to have heat within the tent, or whether you're going to be lighting within the tent. Our fire marshals, and I know the building department is available. If you have any specific questions or that's a path you're looking to go down, I would recommend or advise, reach out to us early and often. We are making ourselves available and making this a priority for our operations so that we can make sure that all questions are answered and no hurdles are in place. But it is important to us to make sure that whatever path is chosen, we can give you the proper guidance the first time so that we don't risk having to redouble efforts or make modifications because it didn't comply with those tent material requirements or what's going on.
And Chief, what's the best number for them to call, or who should they email?
So the best phone number contact is 860-489-2255. And then the fire marshal would be the best email contact, which would be edward_Bassetta@torringtonct.org. I can type up a thing and put it up on a screen towards the end of the event, if that helps, Rista.
That would be great. Thank you, Chief. And there's a question that came through about small, like pop-up type tents. Do those meet the requirements, or do they have to be something different?
Generally, the pop-up tents don't meet the flame retardant requirements. So some of them do, but generally a lot of them do not, which is why I'd say anyone that's in that situation, reach out and we'll make sure we're available to be able to provide that guidance and make sure we can get that all squared away as quick as possible.
So for restaurants who are not serving outside, they're going to remain takeout and delivery only, but want to put some tables outside so their customers can take their takeout, go sit on the tables. Do they need to get the seasonal patio permits to do that? Marty, if you want to start, and then Tom, you can go second.
Yeah, Tom and I had a discussion about this, and it's my understanding that if they continue to be basically takeout only and have their takeout in the proper takeout containers, and they wish to have a picnic table or some tables and chairs outside that's really just street furniture, they're not serving out there, that they would not need a patio permit. It's strictly just what we would call street furniture. Is that correct, Tom?
Yeah, Marty, there's a lot of discussion going on about that, and yes, that is correct. Right now, the way the executive order is written is if you're doing takeout, it's supposed to be consumed off premises. We're trying to get clarification on that, but I think a reasonable interpretation of that is if you've got a place to go out and sit outside of your restaurant, you should be allowed to go and sit down. Now, that being said, all of the other conditions need to be met. The 6-foot separation, the 4 people at a table. One of the problems with this outdoor seating is that there's really no way to disinfect a picnic table. So it's probably in the restaurateur's best interest to perhaps placard those and say, these are for your convenience, use at your own risk. Something to bring to mind to the consumer that those tables aren't necessarily maintained the way you would maintain indoor dining tables. I think most people have enough sense to understand that, but it's not entirely clear. So that's our advice right now. We are going to be developing more guidance for that, but that is the crux of it, is that I think outdoor dining in areas that are not service areas, but areas that are just a picnic table, are usable, but I think they should be used with caution, and that caution should be brought to the attention of the consumer.
So there was a question that if somebody does have a patio permit, but they want to expand their patio, either to the parking area, do they need to come in and get the seasonal patio permit?
The answer would be yes to that, because they're adding to it. So yes, we would want them to do it. And once again, it's a temporary permit just to get us through this emergency period, and there's no fee for it, so please do that. And another thing is we're letting the police department know that we've issued these special permits as well.
So that's kind of a good segue to the next question, which is to Chief Baldwin. There's some questions on enforcement. If the restaurant owners or managers are having difficulty with somebody who doesn't want to comply with these guidelines, what steps should they take? What should they do to make sure that they're in compliance? And
All right, I'm going to get it up this morning, the new one. Yeah, I'm going to.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. Managers and restaurant owners, if they have individuals that are not complying with the executive orders or the special requirements for outdoor dining, they need to obviously have a conversation with their patrons concerning the need to maintain the social distancing and to take the necessary precautions to continue, to prevent the spread. Right. If these individuals continue to give if they don't want to comply with a manager's request, by all means, you should contact the police department. We'll send an officer down to the restaurant, and we'll attempt gentle persuasion to help them understand that there's a need for compliance. If they fail to do so, they can be asked to leave the premises. And that also applies to managers and owners of businesses, is that if you have customers that are not complying, you have every right to ask them to leave your premises and to not return. And if they don't comply in that area, again, you can contact us and we can take appropriate action. The only other thing is that managers, they also can't be complicit in this. Managers can't allow this to happen. They have to take make some kind of a response or take some kind of actions if they see violations. If they allow these violations to take place and they're not addressing social distancing issues and the crowds are large, the establishment could face potential penalty. At that point, Torrington Area Health would be contacted, and there could be some potential issues down the road. So it's up to the managers to make sure that they adhere to the guidelines that have been put in place by the state, by our community, to make sure that people are complying. And they can't allow significant crowds to congregate and just brush it off as if it's no big deal or it's not something that they can't handle. If it gets to that point, that's where you're going to need to make contact with the police department, and we will send an officer and help you manage those crowds if they get out a little bit too large.
Great, thank you. So there's some questions about, and Tom, you started to allude to this a little bit about picnic tables and proper sanitizing the tables. Do you have any guidance? Can they put paper over picnic tables, or what's the best way? Is there different ways with the glass table versus metal table? What are some guidelines on how they should be sanitizing their tables and chairs between customers?
Well, anytime you have a hard, durable surface, glass, plastic, anything smooth like that can be disinfected the conventional ways that they've been doing their indoor tables. So I don't really have a problem with plastic outdoor tables. They're spraying them down, they're using them. I would strongly recommend, even with that, that they have probably a paper placemat that they can put down, just added protection that's disposable between each client. That would be useful. If they wanted to go to disposable, like plastic tablecloths, they would have to be changed between each customer. And I'm not sure what the finances are for something like that, or the availability of something to cover an entire picnic table, for example. But smaller tables, that might be feasible. So if they wanted to cover it, everything is single use. Look at it that way. If it's not a durable, cleanable surface, consider it single use, and it must be changed between customers. A paper tablecloth, I don't have a problem with that, is, you know, coming out of a clean package and being placed out there, but it's not a cleanable surface, so it would have to be disposed of between clients. Does that make any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
And so kind of on that same lines, what are some of the guidelines for servers? How close should they get to the patrons? How often should they change their gloves? Do they need to wear masks?
Unfortunately, well, yes, they will be wearing masks. That is clear in the guidelines. What is somewhat unclear in the guidelines is the changing of the gloves. It says when necessary. Torrington Area Health District has a long track record of not being too crazy about gloves, because a dirty glove tends to be dirtier than a dirty hand. If you're not changing your gloves often enough, they're just as dirty as your hand. So we would really like to see thorough hand washing between customers. We definitely think that the use of the sanitizers, as per the guidelines, should be used by the servers. If they choose to use gloves, just be very cognizant of the fact that they can be cross-contaminated. So make sure that they're changing their gloves often. And unfortunately, that's all the guideline says. Personally, I would love to see the world full of enough gloves that you could do that between customers. I don't think that's practical. I think it's probably more practical for them to be washing their hands thoroughly.
Great, thank you. And then as far as customers go, when are they required to wear their masks? If they're sitting at the table, or just when they're in the common areas?
Customers are required to wear their masks except when they're actually eating. Otherwise, if they're at their table, it's again strongly recommended, but they are required anytime they're up from their table to use the restroom, which are still available, by the way, to use the restroom, moving about, getting to their table, leaving their table, and their mask, must be on. At the table, they should be wearing them unless they're actually eating.
Okay. So there's some questions about access to masks and gloves. I can say that I just checked the website. CBIA is still open, taking requests for masks. You can ask for up to 2 masks per employee. They come to the city and the city does the distribution. I would just Google CBIA mask distribution and go on there. That is, as long as supplies last. Like I said, I just went on the website and checked. It's still open. But if you do need those masks, go on as quick as you can, because I'm not sure how long that program will continue. Chief Towie or anybody else, I guess, either. Do you have any other resources or suggestions where people can find masks, hand sanitizer, and gloves for their customers and employees?
Yeah, I mean, I could continue the supply chains hopefully are going to start opening up a little. Just on that CBIA and the state of Connecticut mask distribution, we are getting word that they are continuing that on a week-to-week basis while those supplies last. For our area, those orders really need to be in by Wednesday morning. I would make sure that any orders, it's a Google form that you fill out that you just put in and number of employees, which lets them calculate how many masks they distribute to you. If you get those orders in by Tuesday evening, they should be filled. or by Wednesday, they fill them, and then we pick them up from a centralized pod within Connecticut or a point of distribution within Connecticut on Thursdays. And then depending upon how much we have to distribute, usually we've been setting up a distribution on the following Monday to get those masks out. But it is important, if you do need those surgical masks, to access that link and get those orders in place by Wednesday at the latest. Otherwise, it'll get pushed off to the next week's order. Because when we receive those masks, it's already identified the businesses that have requested them and the number of masks that we need to distribute to them. We are just really the vessel to get those masks to you. So strongly encourage you to get those orders in early, as soon as possible, to make sure that we can get them to you as quickly as possible.
So we've been getting some questions regarding food trucks and, you know, what requirements food trucks are going to need. Chief Baldwin, are you there to talk about if they want to be on city property, what they would need for a vendor's permit?
Currently, any type of vendor needs a permit. I'm still currently signing off on vendor permits at the police department. Individuals can, I believe they can go on our website and they can get the application for those permits and fill them out. And we still need to do the background checks as required. So they can continue to apply for those vendor permits through the police department. And we'll get those out to you as soon as we can.
Tom, do you have some guidance on food trucks?
Well, we do and we don't. When the executive order came out, it said that in association with food, such as a food truck, there's no such definition in any particular codes. They kind of created that verbiage themselves. I'm trying to get clarification of what a food truck is. Does it physically have to have an engine making it a truck? Can it be one of the trailers that we're so accustomed to seeing at fairs and are typically licensed by us, and we encourage those? We're trying to get that clarification. Right now, if you have an itinerant vendor's license from the health district, that's a very specific license, and those of you in the business know what that is. That allows you to go to places and serve food. You're licensed to do that. What we're not doing right now is issuing temporary food permits. That would be someone that does not have an itinerant vendor's license, such as a hot dog cart. We'll set most of the hot dog carts, the smaller setups that are kind of pop-up setups. Those currently are not being licensed just because of their transient nature and kind of pop-up nature and exposing everybody, including the inspectors, to the inspection process for doing that. We're working on guidance for that. That may change, but right now, itinerant vendors, we feel itinerant vendors qualify as food trucks until we're told otherwise. If you have a large itinerant vendor food trailer that you're accustomed to bringing to fairs, bringing to locations, we would encourage that. I will caution you that may change. We're hoping the state sees our side of that story, but until someone defines that, I guess we're kind of in a little bit of a flux. But that being said, the chief was correct. Make sure that you're parking in a legal spot. You can't just pull up and park anywhere. You have to have those arrangements made.
Yes, and from a zoning standpoint, I learned something last year that I didn't know. The state of Connecticut will not allow food trucks to be parked along the state highway. We had a food truck that was parked in front of City Hall, and the state DOT came by and told them that they were not allowed to be on a state highway, and they did send me the state statute that does prevent people from doing that. So just be aware that that exists, and you got to find a spot. Preferably, it has to be on in a commercial zone, We don't want you parking in front of in a residential zone in front of a house.
Marty, if they were to
And to
park.
that point, Marty, this is Chief Walden. To that point, we had an issue just the other day where somebody set up a truck at the Co-Park. That goes for city property as well. You're not allowed to be placing your vendor trucks on city property, as Marty just stated. The commercial venues would more than likely be the best place for that.
And Marty, is there any application that they need to be aware of if they do want to go on private property?
No, we have, in the past, not required any kind of application. We do say to use good common sense in that don't park in front of one of our existing restaurants.
Sorry.
Okay. So there are, I just want to draw everybody's attention to the chat room onto the side over here. There's been a lot of information posted, some contact information from to the fire department, the link to small businesses. There was a question about the 50% capacity, and the question is that doesn't apply to the outdoor dining. It's just making sure that you're 6 feet apart. I think there's some questions about food coverings, and we'll make sure that we get some information from some clarification. Or Tom, if you want to answer quick now, a little bit more details of what you're requiring for a food covering.
Sure. I mean, I don't think it has to be too elaborate. The code simply says food protected, and let's think about what we're talking about here. We're talking about that low-flying pigeon or something else that's going to interfere with the quality of the food before it's actually served to the person. So, you know, I picture an inverted plate. I picture something along those lines, clean plate, something along those lines to simply protect the food from debris, from other materials that might fall into the food before it's served. And once again, once it's served, it's the it's the consumer's responsibility to protect their own meal. But if you have umbrellas and whatnot, we certainly encourage that. So I wouldn't say like a cloth covering, because that's something that you'd have to wash between each use. Use a durable surface. Use something that can be cleaned, and I think we'd all be okay with that.
I have one more question, and then we're going to close the question and answer section. But if you do have questions, feel free to email them to me. But back to food trucks, is there any guidance on the employees in the food truck as to how they should be separated, or any PPE that they need to be wearing, or anything along that lines, because it's a little bit of a tighter quarters?
You would be applying the same guidance that the restaurateurs are applying to their cooking space. So you would be socially distancing. I know it's a food truck, how are you doing this? But you're socially distancing as much as you can. You should be wearing masks. You already should be either wearing gloves, which are changed frequently, or washing your hands frequently. You shall have a hair covering, clean clothes. Everything that you normally do still applies. Just because it's an emergency doesn't mean you get to do something different. The only difference being face mask.
Okay. All right. So we're at our 45 minutes. So that's the end of what we have to say to you. But I do want to, if there's anything that you didn't put in chat, or anything, questions that you do want to answer, we do want to just attempt to open it up. So if you do have a question you'd want to ask in person, because I know there's some people on the phone who don't have the option to access that chat line, please unmute yourself. Let's try to be respectful and take one question at a time, and we'll go from there. And if you do need to jump off, we understand that, but we do want to just open it up. So if anybody on a phone or other that doesn't have access to the chat wants to ask a question, please unmute yourself and ask your question. I don't see.
I think you have to unmute everybody.
Do I have to? All right, let me. I'm gonna unmute everybody here and see how this goes. All right.
71.
Okay, so if we did shelves, if we maneuvered the shelves to be this wide,
Can you just identify yourself, who you are?
because I used the shelves that they had, I guess the spacing that I have on those shelves, if we can keep that spacing from the shelf unit out there, it was different than me. It was this size because I was able to keep the big bins in it. Whatever this height is,
Yeah.
so it would fit here if it would be 1 or 2.
Okay, I have everybody remuted, but I did allow the option for you to unmute yourself. I'm just gonna keep this open for another minute here. If there's anybody who wants to unmute yourself, I think you will be able to now, and we can go from there.
I have a question. I think I heard it, but I wanted to clarify. My name is Eleni. So for the patio seating, you know, we have to do, we did everything 6 feet apart, and then it says 50% capacity. So if I have 6 tables out there, can I fill all 6 tables as long as it's 6 feet apart? What is considered 50% capacity? And also, do we tell our patrons that they need to kind of hurry it up so that we can roll over because it's only 50% and we need to make, is there a tactful way to say that? So they won't stay there for all day?
I'm not aware of the 50% capacity for outdoors. I know you have to keep the separating distance.
Okay.
Maybe you know more than I know about that particular section. I think that has to do with talk about when the day comes when you can be indoors.
Okay. All right. Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
I'll chime in very quickly about Marty. I think you're correct. The fact that they do say 50%, but then they also allow you to expand your seating area. So it really doesn't make any sense. I think that is going to be applicable to the indoor seating when and if it does come along. But right now we as a health department are not going to be requiring, looking for this 50% thing because we don't know what you had to begin with. So it's really impossible for us to say you've cut by 50%. The real issue here is make sure that you have that spacing so that you're complying with the outdoor regulations. I have been asked about the turnover time on tables. There's really no way for us to comment on that. That is absolutely an individual restaurateur's decision about whether they want to limit the amount of time for a patron.
Maybe you could put some kind of a nice sign on the table that says, please be courteous, and we're trying to make a living here kind of thing, something like that, just to remind people. I think everybody is going to be so happy to be outside, seeing other people and having a nice meal that you will have to remind people they got to move along.
Tom, is there any restriction on the number of people that can be at a table?
Yes, there are. It's 4. And again, we're getting a lot of these questions from restaurateurs. How can you limit to 4? Well, you really need to limit to 4. The family of 6 that walks in, that's been living together all this time, they're in the same boat, so to speak. Is it practical to split up a couple of kids and throw them? No, it's not. So if you have extenuating circumstances that you can explain to the restaurateur and say, we 6 live together, we came here together, and we're going to dine together, I think you can make that exception. I think the only people that will grumble are other patrons that say, why do we have to sit in 4s? That is really for people that have two groups that have decided to come together and share a meal. No more than 4 unrelated or people that aren't living together should be allowed at a table. I hope that clarifies that.
All right, so not seeing any more chat questions. And even though we've opened this up, I know that it's clumsy trying to formulate your question and, find your voice in a Zoom meeting. I just want to remind everybody that we're available by email. Chief Tower, you're going to put your email up
It's
so
in the
that
chat.
you got it up. Okay, great. And Rista Malanka, again, is the person you want to get in touch with. And so that's Rista, RISTA _MALANCA at torringtonct.org. You'll find that email if you're not able to write it down or catch it on our City of Torrington webpage under the Economic Development page. So again, my sincere gratitude that you all phoned in this morning. As we've said, this is just the first of these meetings we intend to hold. We want to hear feedback from you after this meeting, if this was helpful, and also ideas on what would be more helpful going forward. So with that, I would just say to all of you, please be healthy and be strong, and let us know if there's anything we can do for you.
Great. Thank you, and hope you all have a great day. Be safe.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.